And hello again, dear ones. Reverend Robert over here.
Rev Z right here.
And here as our very special guest is Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson. Thank you, sir, for being with us.
Greetings.
Good that you are here today. All right. Thank you,
Great
dear
to be
ones, for
here
being with us. If you're catching this live on the New Thought Media Network, thank you so much. Please hit that share button, that like button, subscribe button, whatever button they give you. Just go ahead and click it, and that way you'll know more about when we do this. We do it every Tuesday afternoon at 2 p.m., but of course, the archives are here. You can watch anytime you like on the New Thought Media Network, on our Facebook page, our YouTube page, wherever that may be. So you'll notice that the gentleman here on the top of the screen with me is Rev Z, here every week with me, and glad that you're back from your adventure, Z. You were traipsing around the country a little bit with your son there, yes?
Yeah, and I got one more trip to get him back to school this week, and then I can take a sit down. I headed over to St. Louis in a couple of days.
Oh, good. And folks, in case you missed it, it was Rev Z's birthday over the weekend. So if you missed that, head on over to his Facebook page, give him a shout out, or drop a comment in the comment box and wish him a happy birthday. So, Raymond, I have no idea when your birthday is, so we're not doing that for you today. But, we're very glad that you're with us. Folks, Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson is the spiritual director of the Center for Spiritual Living Greater Baltimore, and newly ordained, here's how we celebrate you, newly ordained minister with the Centers for Spiritual Living. If you want to know why that's a big deal, folks, a lot of traditions, you go through education, your schooling, and you get licensed and you're immediately ordained. Not so around here. We make you stick around for 3, 4, sometimes 5 or 6 years to make sure that you really want to do this work before the organization confers ordination upon you. So real quick, I'm going to take a brief second and summarize, just in case you're new to this and you have no idea what we're talking about so far. We are religious scientists. We practice the philosophy known as the science of mind, and we do so inside an organization that is known as the Centers for Spiritual Living, or shortened to CSL. So, and you'll also hear the concept of the philosophy of New Thought, which we all recognize and we invite you to join in, is a much larger umbrella to any of this. And that's part of where we're evolving into. We each come to this from our own discussions, from our own explorations, from our own lived experience. And we come together to explore, well, what does it mean and what does it look like to live this philosophy and these principles heading off into the future? And we want to jump into kind of all of this conversation by first and foremost, not only welcoming Raymont, Dr. Raymont. We drop titles around here and sometimes we don't, who knows. I want to welcome you, but I also want to welcome your opinion. We want to jump into the whole superhero story because you're like the one guy in this movement that I know that is truly just like the personification of superhero.
Okay, I got you.
Some of us want to be rock stars. Some of us want to be professors. Some of us present in this way or express in this way. I've been truthfully enamored with your expression of ministry since we first met because you bring something that no one else does, a sense of authenticity to this. So who's your favorite superhero? And what's that superhero's vision of the next 5 years or so?
So, well, that's a difficult question because there are so many, and I like various ones for various qualities and traits. But one of my current top current would be Dr. Strange, because he wasn't bitten by a radioactive spider. He's not an alien from another planet. He developed his abilities by reading books. Like as simple as that. He learned, he studied, he practiced, and he mastered the mystic arts.
Yeah.
Now, the vision in terms of what? Just so I'm clear.
The life, the universe, and everything.
Okay, so the vision,
You
the 5-year
got
vision.
you got free reign right there. So just
Right. Woo! Okay, the 5-year
only
vision for the ancient one, the sorcerer supreme, the master of the mystic arts, 5-year plan, 5-year vision would be understanding and recognizing that all of the chaos, all of the destruction, all of the issues that the Thanos consciousness snapped out of existence and then had to be brought back, that there is a way to balance, there is a way to have harmony, there is a way to cause serenity through all levels of the multiverse, where people are working together for the common expression of life. Like, it's not about lack and scarcity, which is why Thanos snapped. It's about, there are plenty of resources. Let's connect to one another, collaborate with one another, communicate with one another, and use our resources wisely, and we'll recognize that there is more than enough.
Amen. See, this is what I love, right? Folks, if you've been following this program, the languaging you're hearing is just a little different than how I say it, how Z says it, how each one of us brings this unique experience and expression to articulating a vision. Right. Z, I don't know if I've ever asked you that question. Who's your favorite superhero?
No, you haven't. And as Raymont has stated, that you put me on the spot, man. There's too many doggone superheroes. But
Right.
I'm going to go with Black Panther, just because my foundational spiritual underpinnings, if you will, is the Kabbalion. That speaks to all of the things that really, I think, encompass every superhero, which is mentalism and correspondence and vibration and polarity and rhythm and gender or opposites, if you will. And the magic is, how do you begin to go down the idea of having a thought, finding a correspondent thought that will automatically create vibration, because two opposites will automatically create vibration. And once that pole is set up, now you have polarity, where you can go back and forth between the ideas or whatever it is on opposite ends. And automatically that sets up a rhythm. Yeah. And then once you can get in the flow of that rhythm, there's going to be cause and effects that happen as a result of that, which is going to manifest something. If we get to the gender part of reconciling all these opposites and making something happen. And that's kind of like what Black Panther did with his science and the whole thing they did in Wakanda, is to understand the elements of the universe, how they work, and now let's put them to use.
Amen.
So,
amen.
That's it. But now, of course, it wouldn't be fair for us not to ask you that, and put you on the spot too.
Yeah.
to illumine us with that idea.
That's true. And as I asked you the question, I was like, yeah, damn, what am I going to turn it back on me? And I didn't prep for this question either, because Raymont's the expert here. So, if this was a panel discussion, I'd just look down the panel and say, I'd like to hear what Raymont has to say about that. But I don't think I'm going to get away with that here today. So,
not today.
It's interesting. I wasn't a comic book kid. Yeah, I watched movies and Star Wars and early Star Trek, and I was a little bit more of a video kid than I was. So I don't quite have the canon
Okay.
of all the superhero universe, and I never really studied the multiverse to know enough of. Well, this guy would never really be with that girl in this movie,
Mm-hmm.
or so. But where I started to really actually embrace the use of the superhero in movie making is, well, in Raymont's background there with The Matrix and with Neo and with
Mm-hmm.
that storyline. And that didn't actually even correspond with my spiritual awakening. Right. It wasn't until years later that I came into my own spiritual awakening and then went, oh, hey, wait a minute. Now I get an idea why I was more attracted to that.
Yeah.
And that story and how that weaves through the ability that I was learning in my early spiritual awakening. Hey, I'm really at the choice point here. This is
Right.
truly it really is all about me. And
Right.
it's really all about me making it not about me and making it about what's going on around, so that we're always, it seems to me, all super, like, no matter what superhero it is, we're moving towards how do I take what I've been given to make things better around me for those
Well,
around
it's because it's the
Yeah.
hero's journey. Like that's the root of all of it. It's the hero's journey.
me. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We are
Yeah.
each
And
on our own journey.
and there's an interesting piece that I don't know if you've heard of, or how many of the audience have heard of Brian Greene. He has the book The Elegant Universe, and I was listening to a podcast with him the other day, and he made this interesting analogy, which has been spoke of before, but he talked about how, these world within worlds, if we look at the biological world and the chemical world and the
Mm-hmm.
electrical world, of how they each have their own thing, but they all fold into each other. The chemistry folds into the biology, and then the biology has its own electromagnetic system called the heart and everything, circulatory system. And so when we look at the Matrix, what made me think about it is like, Neo is trying to understand that we live within a world within a world within another world, and as you begin to unravel that and see the connection, now you can traverse and be in a normal state of consciousness, if you will, but on a dime switch back to another level of understanding and movement and do some things there that will percolate up. Although they may not be seen, it will percolate up to manifestation. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what I'm looking at and thinking in terms of new thought, where we have to go. We have to be masters of the multiverse, as you said, and figure out, where, as everything else, what are my strengths, what are my weaknesses, and when I need X, I call Raymont. When I need Y, I call on BRZ, and then now we get this thing moving to create this world that works for everyone that we talk about.
True that. True
Yeah.
that.
It's there's that ability to have Trina, somebody upload the program, right? Do I know how to fly a helicopter? Hell no. Somebody upload the program and I'll get. Now we're not there yet, obviously.
Right.
However, the theory remains the same. That if I need somebody to fly a helicopter, I'm within a few degrees of separation of that person.
Yes.
Because there is no separation, because we're all connected. I just have to be willing to be open to the fact that, hey, that's not mine to do. And be willing to say, hey, who can do this, and accept and be ready that there has to be somebody in the universe that can step in and support whatever it is we're working towards.
Right. And the first thing is, I have to, before I can even be willing, I have to have the awareness that, one, there is a helicopter. Two, that there is that separation per se between me and three other people who have the resources. Like, I have to know me well enough to know how to create a suit of iron. I have to know me well enough to pull vibranium out of the ground. I have to know me well enough to know that I'm the only one who's worthy to lift this hammer. Like whatever that is, I have to know me well enough to then step into, because what we see in terms of the canon of Marvel, when the heroes stop knowing themselves well enough, distrust entered in, and then the Civil War happened between Iron Man and his group and Captain America and his group, because their level of self-awareness started to wane, which then caused drama and distrust and confusion.
Yeah.
So it's like, I have to know me, know thyself. Going back to what did the Oracle tell Neo? Temet noske, know thyself, Neo.
Yeah.
Like that's extremely important.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you just reminded me, Raymond, this I'll call this guy a superhero, although he's not labeled as such. There was a series, and I would encourage everybody, if they haven't seen it or haven't seen it for a while, to go back. I caught it the other day, and now I'm back into it. There was a TV program called The Pretender. It aired between like 96 and 2000. And it was this guy, he was able to take on any persona and step in and be a pilot. That's what made me think about it. Be a doctor, be whatever it was. He was in touch enough with himself and the universe, if you will, to download whatever he needed to do to resolve a situation that was unhumane, if you will.
Right.
And there's the famous line that they have. The guy says, "Are you a doctor?" He says, "I am today." And that's what we have to be. We have to be able to traverse like that so we can make a difference in this world.
Right. Yes. Yeah, we have to be willing to take on the role and the authority that comes with that role. Like if I am today, okay, then what all comes with that? The ability to help and serve and heal. Well, I am a minister. I am today. Then what comes in, what's with that? I am a leader. Okay, then lead. Like whatever that means, take your power. Because not all of the quote unquote superheroes, not everybody in the Matrix was Neo, right? Trinity had her own thing. Morpheus has his own thing. Like everybody has their own gifts and talents. Same thing within the Marvel, the Justice League, DC, like it's that same thing. Not everybody needs to run as fast as the Flash. Not everybody needs to be able to fly. But when you know who you are and you know what you're here to do and you do it well, didn't Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, look, if you're going to sweep streets, sweep them with the genius that Michelangelo painted. Do what is yours to do with mastery and love and passion, and the world changes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And that's so real, because it speaks to that whole idea of universal consciousness, or as Jung would put it, these archetypes that are permeating the universe, that when you resonate with that energy, you can download and become that thing. And there's no competition between thing A and thing B, because we know both A and B have to exist if this thing is going to happen. And so I do my thing, and then who's to say? I may not tomorrow. I may be a pretender. We may switch roles. I may be A tomorrow, and you may be B. And so when we have this understanding of what universal consciousness means, and that if we put ourselves in the right position and in the right energetic framework, there's the magnetic force of attraction, if you will, that will automatically download whatever it is you need. And you don't have to know everything, but you have to really be clear about what it is you're projecting, who you are pretending to be, if you will, or as this other modality called voice dialogue, saying that we're all made up of composite of good boy, bad boy, rich, all these different personas within us. And we need to know how to channel the one we need at the moment. Because sometimes I may need to be a bad boy if somebody's trying to rip me off.
Right.
True. I have a saying I like to use a lot, and that is that everything necessary for the complete and total fulfillment of my mission on this planet comes to me exactly as necessary. Not ahead of time, not a day late and a dollar short, but what's going to be. And I might have my idea of what's necessary in this time, but that may not be true.
Right.
And what I love about this conversation, what we're talking about here, right, is this truly is the place where everybody has to stand up and be a part of the game. Nobody gets in all of these stories, in all of these universes, and all these different in this multiverse, there is no wasted character. There is no sideline character that does nothing but sit in the background with their hands behind their back. That's 1930s cartoons. We don't do that shit anymore. Right? Everybody is absolutely vital to the evolution of the experience. So no matter what the gift is, no matter what the talent is, no matter what the skill is, each of us is being called into this in some amazing way.
Right. Yep.
Pretty cool. Folks, if you're just joining us, it's 20 minutes past the hour. We're about a third of the way in, which is great, which means we still got a long way to go in this conversation today with Rev Dr Raymont Anderson. He's the senior minister of the Center for Spiritual Living, Greater Baltimore, in Baltimore, Maryland. We'll put the URL there is on your screen, real easy to find. I also have learned that if you go anywhere on the internet, just type in Reverend Dr. Raymont and Anderson, and he will, oh yeah, you know this, he will show up. You go to Facebook, Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson. You go to Instagram, he's there. Are you on TikTok now?
I am now.
Are you finally? Okay, wait a minute. Here's a bigger. Are you on Insight Timer?
Not yet. I'm still not there yet.
Let's get you on Insight Timer. Yeah. There we go. There's a new. Maybe I can finally go squat. I'll go grab the URL now. I joke with you. So, Reverend Dr. Raymont is with us this week. It is a great and glorious conversation. We're talking about the hero's journey. We're talking about superheroes in general, and let's move away from this here. You've touched on some things here today. I would love to hear what you feel are the necessary steps for individuals and or organizations to move forward, to take this new thought philosophy. And folks that follow this show, we're really about looking for practical applications. What do you see as the vision moving forward over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years with this philosophy of new thought?
So the vision that I would love to see is people finally understanding that in order for us to, we say a world that works for all. So one is we have to even know what that means. And that's not a conversation that many people are even having to be able to express. What does that mean? Because like a lot of people have come to me and said, well, wait, Reverend Ray, but a world that works for all means the world works for the KKK member and you as a black man. And I'm like, no, that's not what we're saying. But if you just take the phrase by itself, it's easy to extrapolate that and make that assumption. So the vision 5 years hence would be that people are willing and able to have challenging, difficult, conflicting conversations without making it about themselves and their feelings being hurt, without it becoming all about being people pleasers, etc., because that is a huge thing within New Thought, which is one reason why a lot of us have gravitated toward this. People who grew up codependent, grew up as people pleasers, grew up with covert narcissism, and grew up with addiction, and grew up with like this aligns with us because it affirms no matter what, you're good. Yes, but there's work to be done. So 5-year vision would be we do the work. We have done the conversations. We've done the deep introspective work. We've like reconciled what it means to we other people. Why do we set up this thing where we are othering people for whatever, whether it's politics, whether it's religion, whether it's race, ethnicity, whether it's sexual or like whatever it is, we still have a tendency to do that right now. 5-year vision is we've worked through that to come out the other side, recognizing what community actually means, communication, collaboration, cooperation, so that we actually live, not just have a vision, but we live the vision. Like I keep telling people, faith isn't something you have. Faith has you, because spirit has no reason to have faith. Spirit knows. The grass knows. Like the grass doesn't say, so I wonder if. The grass follows what nature does, and nature does what it does. Nature knows lightning strikes. Nature knows the whale and the dolphin and the ocean. It knows. That's spirit. It knows. We express this thing about faith because we question. So we created this idea of, well, do I trust or do I not trust? Well, in terms of theology, let's call trust faith. But when you know, I don't have faith that I'm a black man. It is my lived experience. I know it. Now, if I were, suppose I were blind, right? And I don't see the color of my skin, then I would have to trust what other people tell me. If I grew up in a household where people tell me, well, you do know that you're white, you're just very tan. And I grow up in that, and then I see someone else. It's like the old story of the eagle that ran into the baby eagle, like, and the baby eagle was raised by chickens. Like, you do know you're an eagle, right? No, I've been raised by chickens. So I'm thinking, no, dude, check this out. Spread your wings. You can fly. So based upon our conditioning, we have this thing called faith and trust. 5 years hence, it's live faith. Let faith be what is living through us. Don't just say a prayer. Be the embodiment of that prayer. When we say yes, everything about us, all of the levels of this elegant universe that Rev Z mentioned, all of it in my body, in my life, should all be operating in alignment. When that's happening, manifestation, world that works for all, has to happen.
Right.
Mm.
Right.
Like
And you know,
in opposition.
you know, there's that first, two things. There's that saying that say faith is not something you lean on, it's something you stand in. And so to stand in it, that means you have to have an experiential expectation of it, right? And then again, if we go back to that whole Kabbalion Egyptian mystical system that talks about polarity, we know that as an individual, there is a polarity between hope, trust, faith, and knowing. First, I hope something happens. Then I believe it's going to happen. Then I have faith it's going to happen. Then I trust it's going to happen. And after a while, all of that becomes solidified into a knowingness. And because we live in a universe, it starts all over again, because now you're at a new level of understanding, and you have some similarities or parallels or correspondence between level A and B. However, I need to work out some other stuff here, because there's some other elements that have now been added to the point of view where I am now. And so I go back through that whole process again of hoping and believing and so forth until I get to knowing. And that's how we traverse the multiverse and become, as they say, masters of the universe, because now I've traversed these different levels and I can look and see correspondence points and make things happen which seem truly magical or otherworldly. And that's what we're looking and called to do, because that's who we are.
Right. Yep. Yep.
So we got a lot of work. Self-included. Sometimes I get comfortable on a level and I just get stuck there because I got a level of mastery, and I know there's some hiccups there, but I can control most of it. So I'm like, shucks, I'm just gonna stay here until something knocks me out of my trajectory, and I'm like, ooh, now I got to figure this out again. Some
Mhm.
some drama, some problem, some issue, and it snaps you back into reality and say, okay, wake up.
Right.
And some people live in that place of needing the drama, the trauma, or the chaos. That is the lived experience. That I'm just booking along, and then somebody's going to come along and pop me out of and I'm going to go off on that direction for a while. And you watch how we as humans repeat these experiences, these lived experiences. So just as Rev Z is saying here, right, we're going around and around on this spiral. The choice truly is, do we allow that to be the upward trajectory? Are we awake and aware enough to say, well, damn, that hurt, but I've been here before. And that hurt the last time I was here. And it hurt the last time. And the time before that, when I knocked on that door and they told me to get lost, it hurt. And if you knock on the same door enough times and you keep getting told to get lost, there's something to be learned about how you go beyond that experience and move into a greater experience of it all.
Right. And it's interesting. One of the audience asked about the ego, and I'm sure and there's as many different definitions and placements of the ego as there are people, I'd imagine. But there's an idea that I like about the ego that someone provided. They said, with people give the ego a bad rap. Without an ego, you'd just be a little piece of jelly floating around because you wouldn't have any constitution to stand in. And the ego gets a bad rap because we look at all of the different personas that may make up an ego, right? And not look at the predominant ego that is your personality. I like to say your thing to do that God has placed in you, as we were talking about with all the superheroes, that is yours to do. And when you can project from that, right? When you can come from that ego persona, now you're in alignment. So the problem is not having an ego, I don't think. I think the problem becomes when you're not sure, as Raymond said earlier, who are you and why are you here? Once you find that out, then you can stand clearly in your predominant personality, allow all these other personas to come in and take the stage, just like, we're all on the stage. So if you're doing a one-man show, you're playing different characters. But at the end of the performance, the real actor, director, producer, or whatever it is, stands up and takes the bow, right? And that's my thing about the ego and how we have to navigate that terrain, if you will.
Right. But the funny thing is, and this is my observation, that one of the reasons why it's so easy for people to vilify the ego, because once again, it makes an other that is the enemy, and they don't have to do the work. It's like, once I destroy or get rid of the ego, then I'll be enlightened and my life will be good. But like you just said, getting rid of the ego is actually self-destructive. So you're on a self-destructive path that you may not even realize that you're on, which keeps you stuck in the downward spiral of, but you think you're spiraling up. It's wow. So yeah, we are on this huge, yeah. But I'm with you on that. The ego, if we're going to acknowledge and we're going to say the spirit is all there is, right? Like we quote Voltaire often, God is a circle whose circumference is nowhere, whose center is everywhere. There's not a spot where God is not, yada, yada, yada. Then the ego is a divine creation that serves a purpose. Our task is identify the purpose and use the tool effectively.
Yes.
It's there for a reason. Use it.
Right. People, if you don't have that certain amount of healthy, balanced, appropriate, ego-based energy in a sales pitch, you're not getting that deal. If you're asking people to donate to something and you don't fully have just enough, right? It's not, and that's the fun part, folks. That's the interesting part. That's where we get to prove where the rubber meets the road, that we believe in these principles. because we could spend the next hour, right, guys, looking at examples of the ego run amok, of that aspect of who we are run amok. And we could equally spend just as much time looking at examples of where someone has eliminated, just totally moved, and nothing's getting done.
Right.
Or what is getting done is very internalized, really not moving the needle on the big scale of the picture.
Right.
We all have to get healthy first. Everybody's got to do your inner work first. You got to get healthy. But I saw something today or yesterday. If the end result of your spiritual practice is not an activity in the world, that's not the full maturity of it. I'm butchering that statement, excuse me. We're just going to make it up differently right here and now. Because what I agree with is it is an incomplete spiritual practice that doesn't demonstrate or manifest some movement in the world around us towards that good, towards a vision of a world that works for all.
Right.
We can pontificate all afternoon. I love this.
Well, and that whole array of conversation that just brought me back to Neo, right? In that they kept telling Neo you could do all these things, and Neo kept doubting it. And he went to the oracle, and he went through all these gyrations, and you see people doing all manner of things. But it wasn't until he was threatened, or someone he cared about was threatened to a place of no return. I mean, we get threats every day, but when we get that one of no return, now a whole nother thing kicks in, right? And I hate to go here, but I'm gonna go there. This whole situation we've been dealing with for the last 18 months, that thing that goes unnamed, I was expecting for it to kick us into a different level of observation, awareness, action, and everything. But for some reason, as Raymont, some of those who had this ego thing not figured out, it created more separation, right? And so, God forbid we have to get another tragedy, another thing that wakes us up worse than this, so that we all begin to figure out who we are, what we are, and why we're here, because that would be a real tragedy.
Especially since, and this is the cynic in me, especially since I don't even know if that would work. Because we could be real. Like, let's be real. How many school shootings does there have to be before someone recognizes that there's an issue that we need to solve? Like, you figure one school shooting is enough, that there should never be. One mass shooting is enough, there should never be. One pandemic is enough, there should never be it. One is enough. And yet there's still amnesia, selective amnesia. It's done, it's gone, it's the enemy, it's Voldemort. It's like, okay, let's move on until it circles. Wait a minute. I knocked on this door before. I didn't like how it felt the first time, the 100th time. Why am I knocking on this door again? Why am I doing this relationship again? Why am I doing this to myself again? Yeah. Like, therein lies the thing. Because we treat other people ultimately how somewhere within us we are treating ourselves. What is the old African proverb? When there is no enemy within, then the enemy outside of you can do you no harm. Far too many of us have an internal enemy that is causing us to vilify the ego, vilify the church, vilify something or someone else, instead of doing the deep introspective work, so that we can then live externally and change the world.
Yeah. Ergo the saying of Jesus, he who without sin cast the first stone. We all have our, I love the way Bill Withers said in one of his songs, he said, we all have our own confusion. And so, we need to be working on that, as opposed to trying to point out all these things to everybody else, because if we can resolve the confusion within, our eyes would open and we'll see the connections between A and B and C and D and understand how set theory works. Oh, if I put these together, there's some intersection and there's some outer parts, but it all works. And that's what we're trying to do.
Yep. If we're all driving down the highway and we stay in our own lanes, smooth driving. But the moment I start crossing into somebody else's lane, now we're running into accidents and trauma and drama. Stay in your lane, do what you need to do within your own vehicle.
Yeah, but dude, as soon as you use that analogy, you run into the George Carlin complex. You're familiar with the George Carlin complex, yes? No,
I should be because I know George Carlin, but
everybody on the highway. Everybody on the highway going slower than me is an idiot. Everybody on the highway going faster than me is a flipping asshole. Right? So, because that, to me, that's part of what I see out there. Like, you put anybody in North America, anybody outside of North America, I can't say this. Anybody inside North America, you put them inside a car, and that entire flipping highway is mine.
Right, but that's the thing. They're not staying in. They're making it external, right? Like they're judging other people based upon how they think they should be driving.
Right. They're saying I'm riding slow because I'm not running late. I planned. I know. I expected traffic. I've anticipated. I've been late before. Didn't want to do it again. So I made sure this time when I came back around the spiral and I knocked on the door, it was exactly or very close to what I wanted, and I prepared for it.
Right. So 55 works for me, right? I can drive the speed limit.
We've had this conversation before. Both of you are biased because you're black men. You have to drive slow. I think we've gone over this.
The speed limit's not slow, though. That's the thing.
Well, to a white guy, it is.
Is the speed limit.
Yeah, not to a white guy, it isn't. That's the daily minimum. Sorry, I'm taking us off track, folks. My point was, in North America, the prevalent perspective is, if I'm going to get involved in a conversation, I'm taking up all those lanes. I am going to, and we see that people don't leave room to say, hey, wait a minute, it is okay for them to be going slower and for that person to be on time. It is okay it is okay for people to have viewpoints other than my own. And we were talking about this in an earlier conversation when it comes to parenting. I think it applies here too. The number one skill is listening. And if I'm going to in any way attempt to listen to other people, I got to be able to slow down and say, okay, well, that analogy just bombed. That didn't go anywhere I wanted it to go. Right. But let's look at it again. Let's listen a little deeper. Let's explore just a little bit more of what really wants to happen here. How do we?
And when you look at one of our core, envisioning statements, we envision a world where everyone recognizes their magnificence, right? And are able to operate from that perspective. And so when we can create an environment that allows that, which will have some dynamic tension in it, because that's, diamonds only become diamonds when a coal put under pressure, not too much pressure because then it'll break, but under the right amount of pressure, this thing that has some value and little regard becomes something that's precious and a high regard when it has the right environment, pressure, and everything to bring out its magnificence. And that's what we're looking to create. We, as new thought and religious scientists, at least for myself, I'm not looking for a world of peaches and cream every day because I know that's not real. Right. I want some peaches and cream, but I know sometimes I'm gonna get some hot pepper, right? And so now I begin to develop a palette, if you will, that allows me to pick and choose what I need to create the dynamic intention or put myself in. And now we can begin to move a lot easier. You're never going to get rid of all the friction, right? But Les Brown says there's always going to be highs and lows. But I want my lows to be high lows. I don't want them to be at the bottom of the barrel. I want them to be right here in the middle fluctuating. And that's what we're looking to do, because that's when we get true movement and we get true understanding and respect. Because at that point, I know it's not all about me. It's about all of us.
Right. Right.
Just so long as you're not putting hot sauce on your peaches and cream.
No.
You ain't tried that yet?
I'm good. I'll pass.
Dude, you know my northern tastes could never handle that.
Wow.
That totally sounds like a southern thing, if there ever was. If it's true, I don't even know if that's real.
As they say, some people carry hot sauce in their pocket. It goes good with everything.
Yeah, and I know people who do that. So yeah.
Folks, if you put hot sauce on your peaches and cream, put a comment in the in our show here today. This is New Thought Today. It happens every Tuesday on the New Thought Media Network. Rev Z here with us from the Center for Spiritual Living Denver, and my co-host on a weekly basis, our special guest today, Rev Dr Raymont Anderson from the Center for Spiritual Living Greater Baltimore. We've been talking about superheroes and hot sauce and a future vision of a world that works for everyone, where everyone's awakened to their spiritual magnificence, awakening and bringing their spiritual gifts to the party, where people know there's enough food and resources and shelter. I love having you on the show, Dr. Ray, because we get to talk about superheroes, which we've done a bunch of today. But our special guest today, you have always, for me, been really clear that this is not a philosophy of sitting around on marble bricks just shooting the shit all day long. That all of this is about getting it into the world, utilizing this philosophy to support change, shift, perspective, consciousness, to really be the hands and the heart of God in as we're doing this. And I want to, number one, applaud you for that. And again, I want to probe you, right? What's the call? What can people be doing? Where do we get started? Where do we dive in if we feel we've, if I've already got the bachelor's degree, how do I get the master's degree? If I haven't even started in this conversation of how do I get more involved, share with us a bit, if you would.
So it sort of goes back. There's a passage in the Bible that refers to people and vision, where the people have no vision, they perish. And the average person, like, we think vision and we think corporations, companies, etc. Organizations have vision. But we each, because we are those heroes on the hero's journey, we are both Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader and Yoda and Leia and Han and Chewie. Like, we are all of them. I love the example that Rev Z gave, because having a theater background, there's this idea that I get a script, I practice, I get the role, I become familiar with the character, I develop mastery of the character, the play runs for X amount of weeks, and then I surrender the character to take on a new one. There's this idea of ever being in movement and motion, and we get really comfortable. So the work, the invitation is, what is the vision that you have for your life? And I mean, like, not what job do you want, not what relationship do you want, not what do you want to do when you retire. I mean, grander, the legacy of your life. You are here, especially in our teaching. We recognize that every single person, that spiritual magnificence, that divine magnificence, you are the infinite I am that is ever evolving and expressing itself. You are God in the flesh. You are here for a reason. What is it you are here to be, to do, to share, to leave in this grand experience? So, one, look at your life. Goes back to the self-awareness. And I mean, really look at your life. What in my life would I say is not working? What do I not like? What relationships are not functioning? What's bringing me depression or addiction, or like, what is the thing that is stoking those fires? And I mean, really look at it. And then what is when we talk about treatment and prayer with people, and we say, okay, so what do you want? Far too many people start off with, well, I don't want to be sick anymore. I didn't ask you what you didn't want. Well, I don't want to be broke. I didn't ask you what you don't want. We know this already. What do you want? And people have a difficult time phrasing what they desire. And if they have a difficult time phrasing what they desire, they sure as hell have a difficult time stating what they know they deserve. That's a whole different level of worthiness and value. Where am I in my life? Where do I want to be? What do I want to experience? What does love mean? And how do I bring more love into how do I make myself more available to love me so that others love me, so that I can love them? What is that song that we sing in many New Thought centers? I love myself so much so that I can love you so much, so that you can love you so much, and then you can start loving me. The law of reciprocity and circulation. How do I identify in my life what is not working? What do I want to work? What am I doing? What habits and tendencies am I doing that really, it's spiritual masturbation. It's not producing anything worthwhile. It's not doing anything. It's just, that's all it is. When can I really stop doing the spiritual tiddlywinks and put my hands to use and create and put them in the soil of the universe and reap the harvest? Sit with yourself, be present, identify these things, recognize that you have infinite resources. Just the number of people on the New Thought Network, and I don't know everybody, if everybody's actually accessible, but I would venture to say, send an email. There are thousands of practitioners and thousands of ministers and thousands of coaches who are available to help walk you through it if you're not sure. So what do you want? And then cast the vision and reel it in. It might take a moment, but if you work it, sooner or later, it's now in your hands. But you have to do the work. So be present with yourself and identify what you want. What is your vision? And then have the audacity to believe it and then work towards it.
There's something there that is so incredibly important. I know for me, and I know it must be for so many others, and that is the keep working it. You gotta. I have watched so many people run into a challenge, run into a roadblock, a seeming roadblock, and the heck with it, and they're off, and they're down another road, and oh, now I'm going to go do this instead, and we have to stay, because it is those challenges that prove to ourselves that this stuff really works. It is in, to paraphrase Dr. Holmes, right? It is in those darkest moments when things look the worst, that's the best time to prove only to myself that this stuff works, that my prayer will demonstrate, that my prayer will manifest. And so yeehaw, baby. Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing I got out of that too was also this idea of don't get ahead of yourself. You know, there's that saying that says by the yard is hard, but inch by inch, anything's a cinch. And you got to go at your pace. You can't compare yourself. You got to, you really, as Reverend Ray said, you really have to have a vision of what you want. Because if I don't, I can spend a whole lifetime doing all these things and get to the end and say, why don't I have it? Because I've been going down the wrong road. I wasn't clear about what I want. It looked kind of like it. It sounded kind of like it. But now that I'm at the destination, I realize it is not. And now, do I have time to go back and reach got all this stuff going on, which don't cause no problems, right? So that vision is clear, as Reverend Ray said, in terms of, and again, you may not have the whole thing right now, but you got to start somewhere, and you can always change it if it's done properly with the right intent and the right vision, if you will, of where it is you want to be.
Right. Because think about how many people, since you mentioned it, how many people think that when they have that job or that relationship that everything will be, it's perfect, and it's not. And it's because that's not it. Like, that's not the vision. That's just a thing. That's not the vision.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, exactly. Amen to that. Yes.
Yeah. Rev Z, as you were sharing there, I had this great image, and I think it's a great way to kind of end and get to near the end of our segment, our episode here today in pop culture, and that's albums, record albums. It's got the needle's got to travel down the groove. It's got to keep going down all to get to the new sound. And, you know, for those of a certain age, if you don't know what I'm talking about, sorry. But anybody that ever owned any vinyl, you know that the good song was not out on the far edge. The good stuff was the closer you got to the middle. In the middle of that album, that's where the really good stuff was. And you had to let it play. You got to move through the whole thing. If you just tried to drop it on there and find it, it's a mess.
And so, you risk scratching it.
Yes. And then there's really no going back. So, Rev Dr. Raymont, I want to thank you so much for being with us here today.
My honor and pleasure. Thank you.
This has been so much fun. We've got a new fan with us today, Truly Bree. Welcome. We'll say yes. It's always this good. It's this good every week, Bree. Truly, Bree. And some weeks, folks, it's just Rev Z and myself as we're the show hosts here. We're grateful that Reverend Dr. Raymont's been able to be with us. We do hope he's going to come back. I'm going to wait for an agreement on air on that one.
Yeah, of course I'll be back. Yeah, I mean,
there we go.
I applied for a job during the day, so you know there's a chance that depends on what happens. But you know, if I'm available, yes.
And we can always pre-record.
Oh, there you go. Yes, good point.
Exactly. Rev Z and I will be back with you next week. The week after that, I'm going to be in the Big Sky Retreat in beautiful Big Sky, Montana, with the annual Big Sky Retreat and that family. So we're going to have a couple of special guests that week for you. And Z, I hope you'll be able to still be with us. We'll bilocate into a few different places on that day. If you'd like to learn more about Reverend Raymont and his ministry and what he's doing, again, go anywhere on the internet, type in Reverend Dr. Raymont Anderson, and if you find somebody other than him, let us know, because we got to fix that immediately. Right. You should find him anywhere, but you can specifically find him over at the CSL Greater Baltimore. Rev Z, you can find him here on the New Thought Media Network, or over at the Center for Spiritual Living Denver as well. Gentlemen, before we zip out of here, final thoughts, final words for the day.
I'll go and let Raymont have the last word. I would say find your tune and play it well.
Amen. And I will, since music is the theme, don't let your music die within you. Let it out. Whatever it is, sing as if nobody's listening. Just sing for your own bliss and pleasure, but sing.
And we didn't plan this, so I'm just going to say peace and tune into New Thought Radio.